Oh my goodness. Haunting of Queen Mary is awful. No more, no less. Now, I'm someone who's very much interested in the supernatural phenomena surrounding the actual Queen Mary. So I did have some sort of anticipation for this film, admittedly. But today, I'm going to be focusing on the movie review, and I'll eventually, sometime down the line, do a separate video on the actual ship.
Now let's begin.
3, 2, 1.
The movie jumps back between 1938 and present time. In 38, we follow a family of 3 that manage to con their way on the ship. Long story short, the father of the family goes crazy, he becomes possessed, and he goes on a murder spree, starting with what I believe is room B474, which is supposed to be the most haunted room on the ship. In the present time, we follow another family of 3, the mother being the lead, played by Alice Eve. Now, this movie is very, very confusing. We're presented with around 3 different subplots, and by the end of the film, nothing is tied together. In fact, the main so-called twist in the finale is absolutely shoehorned in, and there's no implication or hints through the film that make you believe this very sudden twist. It's horribly done. The cinematography is a D+ for me. There's tiny hints of potential here and there, but the overall look is flavorless and lifeless. The lighting here is terrible, and some scenes are shot so dark that I had my brightness up all the way, and it was still dark as shit. There's no dash of seasoning behind the cinematography. Coming from somebody who likes one takes in their overall style, this movie has some of the worst use of it I've ever seen in a film ever. If they're not boring, they're very frustrating to sit through. The filmmakers really try to be artsy with certain camera angles and shots, but a lot of times it just infuriated me. The acting is wooden besides the young boy with the disorder. He was the only character I nearly cared about. And maybe the present time captain of the ship does a decent job at being a slimeball. Everybody else in the cast has a clueless look in their eyes or a big question mark above their head. Our lead, played by Alice Eve, is very cardboard cut out, and she barely expresses any type of emotion through the film, not until the very last minute of her screen time. We're mainly following the least interesting character in the whole movie. I didn't care about the father remotely at all, and again, the only character I might have cared about truly was the boy of the present time family. We have a terrible Fred Astaire performance that's randomly thrown into the film about midway. To give some kind of credit, the dancing of the guy portraying him is rather decent, but he's no Fred Astaire. And he has an absolutely laughable introduction. The musical score and the overall use of the soundtrack are both horrendous. The opening credits alone set the tone for me with how badly the music was going to be used. There was already so much awfulness rolling around on screen, but there's 2 moments that come to mind where we see a man playing piano in the lobby of the ship. The second time we see him, we see his fingers on the piano playing, but there's no piano playing in the backtrack that they use for the scene. We hear horns, but we don't hear the piano. The violence in this movie is very inconsistent. A majority of the film is rather small when it comes to the violence, but when we hit the 1-hour mark, we explode into graphic bloodshed with a decent amount of gore, but it leaves as quickly as it came. As someone who's a blood and gore hound, I couldn't find any satisfaction with it in this movie because the execution of it was very laughable, and I already felt the very first minute of the movie spoiled this event. It was just more off-screen in the beginning. So they try to shock you when they revisit this murder around an hour later into the film, just with a shower of blood and gore. And it didn't work for me. I just felt the tone of it was super inconsistent. I love practical effects, but that's about it. That's about the credit that I can give for this particular moment. Maybe if they kept this gory edge throughout the film here and there, I might have enjoyed it just a tad bit more, just a tad. Wrapping it up, Haunting of Queen Mary, I don't recommend it, even if you're interested in the phenomena behind the ship like I am. This movie overall is not great. The acting is wooden. The storylines and the subplots are very, very confusing. You're going to finish this film scratching your head, like, what the fuck did I just watch? As soon as I finished watching the film, I read a bit of the trivia on IMDb, and turns out they shot some of the scenes on the ship, but a good amount of them are CGI recreations. And this was something that I did suspect while I was watching, and I wanted to be wrong. I'm like, why does it look so CGI? But it turns out half of it was filmed with CGI build-ups and recreation. So I found that to be pretty disappointing as well. But moving on to my personal Fro rating, I'm going to give Haunting of Queen Mary a 1.5 out of 10. And that's it, y'all. It's your boy Fro. What did you think about this movie? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you think I'm being a little bit harsh on the film? Comment below. Let me know your thoughts. In the meantime, between time, I'm on to the next review. Peace. I'm out. Fro.